What happens when an entitled royal walks into one of the most opinionated talk shows on television, insults a legend, and sparks a meltdown no one saw coming? Tensions were high the moment Meghan Markle stepped onto the set of The View. From the way she carried herself, the atmosphere seemed to shift immediately. The usual vibrant energy among co-hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, suddenly felt tense and uncertain. Cameras were rolling, producers nodded behind the glass, and there she was, seated at center stage like she owned the place. She smiled politely. Maybe too politely. Her posture was impeccable, chin slightly raised, eyes scanning the panel as though she were sizing them up. Whoopi, ever the professional, welcomed her with grace. We're joined today by Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, activist, philanthropist. Meghan, welcome. Meghan returned the greeting with a thin smile. Thank you, Whoopi. It's interesting to be here. Joy chuckled softly, that familiar skeptical laugh. Interesting? That's an odd choice of word. Meghan tilted her head. Well, I've watched the show. I think it's fair to say it's not exactly subtle, is it? That was the first flicker of tension. Sunny shifted in her seat, exchanging a glance with Sarah. Whoopi kept her tone even. We're not here to be subtle. We talk about things as they are. Right, Meghan said, clasping her hands together. I just think there's a difference between being bold and being loud. A quiet beat followed. Joy leaned forward. You mean to say we're loud? Meghan shrugged, flashing a carefully curated smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Not necessarily you, but I think the show thrives on confrontation. There's a performative aspect to it, isn't there? Alyssa leaned in. Are you suggesting the conversations we have here aren't authentic? No, I'm suggesting they're amplified. For effect, Meghan replied, smoothing her dress. Whoopi raised a brow, unimpressed. So what exactly are you here to say, Meghan? Because I thought this was going to be a conversation. It sounds like you came with an agenda. My only agenda is truth, Meghan replied. I've spent years watching the media twist narratives. I know how this game works, and, frankly, I think the format of this show contributes to the problem. Sarah spoke up, calm but firm. We try to open up honest dialogue. We challenge each other. That's kind of the point. Honest dialogue requires respect, Meghan shot back. And too often, I've seen this show devolve into shouting matches. I'm not here to be talked over, Joy smirked. Honey, nobody's talking over you. You've been doing most of the talking. Meghan's smile cracked. You're proving my point. Whoopi folded her arms and stared her down. Let me tell you something. We've had senators, presidents, celebrities, activists, even controversial figures at this table. And we listen. You came in here swinging, Meghan. You walked in already assuming the worst. Meghan raised her chin. I came prepared. I've learned I have to be. The tension in the room solidified. Sunny tried to steer things toward safer ground. Maybe we can shift to something productive. Meghan, you've spoken a lot about the impact of media on mental health. Can you share more about that? Meghan nodded. Certainly. But again, it ties into this issue. Shows like this, with the constant sparring and pressure to entertain, they create toxicity. They fuel outrage culture. Joy cut in before anyone else could. Are you blaming us for the internet being toxic? Because, sweetheart, that's a stretch. I'm saying platforms like this normalize dysfunction, Meghan countered. People watch it, imitate it, and think it's okay to yell over others, to belittle, to mock. Whoopi's voice dropped an octave. You're sitting at a table with 5 women who've fought to be heard in rooms where no one wanted to listen. And you're calling it dysfunction. I'm calling it what it looks like from the outside, Meghan said evenly. Sarah pressed her lips together. I don't think you came here to have a dialogue. I think you came here to lecture, Alyssa added. This feels performative. Meghan exhaled sharply. You all prove my point every time you speak. It's layered with defensiveness, like I'm not allowed to challenge the premise of the show. Joy shook her head. It's not about challenging the premise. It's about how you do it. You came in here swinging like we owed you something. I don't want anything from you, Meghan said. I just want people to realize there's a better way. Whoopi leaned forward, slow and deliberate. Let me tell you something real clear. You don't get to walk into our house and call us dysfunctional just because we don't coddle every guest who walks in here with a crown on their head. Respect is earned, and right now, you are not earning it. For a split second, Meghan's expression faltered before she gathered herself again. I think that says more about you than me, she said coolly. Whoopi leaned back with a low laugh that wasn't kind. You came on the wrong day, girl. A heavy silence followed. Meghan adjusted her seat, clearly rattled but unwilling to back down. You see, this is what I mean. This entire format encourages confrontation. It thrives on it, Sonny interjected. That's not true. We challenge each other out of care, not spectacle. And yes, we argue, but we also listen. You've done a lot of talking about what we do wrong. But what have you actually offered? Meghan opened her mouth, but no words came. Joy grinned. Exactly. Just like that, the tide had turned. Meghan had walked in with an air of superiority, confident she could steer the narrative, but she had underestimated the panel. Whoopi locked eyes with her. You came here with assumptions. You leave here with a lesson. The air in the studio grew electric. Meghan sat silent, struggling for her next move. The audience, quiet until now, let out a single audible gasp, the kind that slips out when someone crosses a line they can't walk back from. Meghan crossed her legs, posture still perfect, voice deliberately calm. It's disappointing. I thought this would be a more evolved space. I expected a conversation with women who understand nuance, Joy scoffed. Oh, we do nuance, sweetheart. But what you're doing right now isn't nuance. It's superiority wrapped in politeness. Still superiority, Sarah turned slightly toward Meghan. You're not the first person to criticize the show. That's fair game. But you didn't come here to discuss anything. You came to undermine. That's the difference. I came here to speak truth, Meghan insisted. If that makes people uncomfortable, maybe that's a good thing. Sonny's expression hardened. There's a difference between speaking truth and weaponizing condescension. Meghan leaned in, her polished tone slipping. Is it condescension to say that screaming matches on daytime TV don't help public discourse? Alyssa shot back without hesitation. Is it honesty or convenient arrogance? Because I don't think you walked into this room wanting to listen. Whoopi didn't respond at first. She simply sat back with her arms crossed, studying Meghan the way a teacher watches a student stumble through a quiz they claimed they didn't need to study for. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, steady, and surgical. You want to talk about evolving? Let's talk. Evolution is growth. It's learning. It's taking the time to hear others. What you did was walk in and throw judgment like confetti. That's not evolution. That's ego. A hush settled over the table. Meghan's eyes flicked across each host, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in her expression. She straightened, trying to regain ground. Well, if the reaction to critique is hostility, then that says plenty, she said. Sonny's voice was sharp. You call it critique, but you wrapped it in smugness. If you really wanted dialogue, you'd have asked questions. You didn't. Joy leaned forward. And by the way, this show, as messy as it can get, has held powerful people accountable. We don't treat anyone like royalty just because they've been in a palace. You shouldn't, Meghan shot back quickly. That's not what I want. But let's be honest, there's a certain tone here that… Whoopi cut in, her voice clear and unwavering. Say it. Don't dance around it. Meghan hesitated. That what? Say it, Whoopi repeated. Meghan exhaled. That tone often borders on bullying. The studio fell dead silent. Sarah's eyes widened. Bullying? You think this is bullying? Joy raised an eyebrow. Wait until you see the comment section tomorrow, honey. Meghan brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. I think women deserve better from women. That's all. Sunny's tone was ice cold. Don't you dare weaponize feminism now. We built this show so women could speak freely. You don't get to walk in here, spit on that, and then call yourself a feminist for doing it. Whoopi leaned forward, fingers steepled. Why did you even come on the show, Meghan? Because from the way this is going, it feels like you came here just to make us the villains in your narrative. Meghan didn't answer immediately. Her eyes flicked toward the producer's booth as if looking for an escape. Then she lifted her chin. I came here to challenge assumptions, to push the conversation forward. Alyssa shook her head. And yet, you've managed to make everyone recoil. That's not progress. That's provocation. Joy's voice dropped into something cool and deliberate. You know what this feels like? Like you wanted a viral moment? Like you rehearsed these lines in the mirror this morning, knowing they'd blow up? Meghan turned to her. I don't need to rehearse the truth. Whoopi leaned back, a small, knowing smile forming, not warm, but final. Then here's a truth for you, Meghan. This show doesn't exist to flatter egos. It exists to ask questions, to fight when it's needed, and to grow when we're wrong. But we don't entertain people who walk in with daggers and cry foul when someone calls it out. Sarah's voice was steady. We've disagreed with each other for years. We've had screaming matches on air. But we've never made it personal. You did, Meghan's voice sharpened. You're twisting my words. No, Sunny said quietly. We're hearing them loud and clear. The producers were visibly restless now. A cue card slid onto the table, but Joy shoved it aside. Whatever break they'd planned wasn't happening. Meghan inhaled deeply and turned back to Whoopi. I expected you, at least, to understand where I'm coming from. Whoopi didn't blink. You expected me to nod politely while you tore down everything I've spent decades building. You came for a queen, and you got the crown thrown back at you. That's what you didn't expect, the audience murmured softly. Meghan froze. I think we're done here, Whoopi said, her gaze steady. But Meghan, against all instinct, spoke again. If being honest means I'm done, then maybe that's the problem. Silence is compliance, right? No, Sunny replied coldly. Weaponized victimhood is the problem. You're not here to be silenced. You're here to control the narrative and paint us as the aggressors. Meghan looked away, blinking rapidly. For a woman who built her image on composure, it was a rare moment where the mask cracked, and the studio saw it. Whoopi turned toward the audience, signaling the segment was ending. But just before they cut to commercial, she delivered one last line. Next time you want to come on a show called The View, maybe don't try to bulldoze everyone else's. When the cameras stopped, silence gripped the room. Meghan sat rigid, the studio lights casting sharp shadows across her face. No one moved. No one reached for water. No one cracked a joke. The panelists were still processing, not because they doubted what they'd said, but because of how far Meghan had pushed it. An assistant producer stepped forward. Do we reset the next segment? No, Whoopi said, her eyes never leaving Meghan. We're going back in. Same topic. No cleanup. 5 seconds later, the red light above the camera blinked on again. The familiar intro music played, but no one was smiling anymore. The set of The View no longer felt like a talk show. It felt like a courtroom. And Meghan Markle was fully on trial. We're back, Whoopi said, calm but firm. And the conversation continues. Meghan forced a smile, though it trembled slightly. I do think this is important. These kinds of conversations, even uncomfortable ones, can be illuminating. Joy scoffed. Illuminating how you insulted the entire panel, called us dysfunctional, and implied the audience is complicit just for watching. It's not an insult if it's the truth, Meghan replied. Joy shot back without missing a beat. Then here's some truth for you. We've taken flack from politicians, actors, authors, even Supreme Court justices. But you walked in here thinking you were above all that we'd fold at the mention of your name. Why is that? Alyssa leaned in. You act like your opinions are too complex for anyone to understand. But what you're actually doing is refusing to engage. There's no dialogue here, just monologue. Meghan's voice hardened. I find it telling that strong women speaking their minds are always labeled difficult. Sarah didn't flinch. No one here has a problem with strong women. What we have a problem with is you trying to silence us under the banner of truth. Sunny nodded slowly. Exactly. You keep positioning yourself as the lone voice of reason, but the only voice you're interested in is your own. Meghan sat straighter. You're proving exactly what I was saying, that you mistake disagreement for disrespect. No, Whoopi said calmly. What we're saying is that respect is mutual. You walked into this room and treated all of us like a cautionary tale. That's not disagreement. That's contempt. So I'm not allowed to challenge anything without being framed as hostile? Meghan asked. You're allowed, Whoopi replied. You just weren't ready for anyone to challenge you back. Meghan swallowed. The room felt heavier now, the cameras still rolling, every word etched into the air like glass. I expected disagreement, she said quietly. Whoopi leaned in just slightly. Then you got exactly what you came for. But what she didn't expect was the defensiveness. Joy crossed her arms. That's because you came in swinging. Did you think we were just going to nod and smile while you trashed the show? Meghan gave a small, calculated smile. I didn't trash it. I critiqued it. Critique doesn't sound like passive-aggressive jabs, Sunny said. It sounds like conversation. You've made it clear you didn't come to understand. You came to win. Meghan leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. What would be the point in trying to understand something I fundamentally disagree with? Alyssa blinked. You just admitted it. You came in here with your mind made up. Because I've seen the show, Meghan said with a shrug. I knew what to expect. No, Whoopi cut in sharply. You saw clips. You saw headlines. You didn't see the decades of work. You didn't see the impact. You didn't see the heart. And you definitely didn't come here to understand the full picture. Meghan turned toward her again. And you didn't come here willing to hear a different one. The air shifted, tense, but eerily calm. It was no longer about winning an argument. Sarah leaned in gently. Meghan, this isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about how you show up. You had a seat at this table. We gave you the floor, but you treated it like a podium. Meghan looked down for a moment. For the first time, she seemed visibly shaken. But she pressed on. It's hard to speak truth in a space that's already decided what it wants to hear. Then why come? Joy asked. Why sit here if you think this platform's broken? Meghan hesitated. Her voice softened. Because it's still one of the biggest platforms in daytime television. And I thought maybe I could shift it. Silence. The admission hung in the air, cold and calculated. Meghan hadn't come to talk. She'd come to reshape the narrative. Whoopi shook her head slowly. You came to hijack the table. That's not how this works, Sunny exhaled. You wanted to challenge the system. Fine. But you chose the wrong way to do it. And the wrong room. Meghan didn't respond. She sat back, hands folded in her lap, expression unreadable. Joy studied her, then leaned toward the camera. Let's be real. You're not seeing a clash of ideologies here. You're seeing a performance. And we don't do well with scripted arrogance. The audience began to applaud softly. A few cheers broke through. Meghan remained still, silent, and stiff. Whoopi signaled the producers. The light over the camera shifted, signaling a break. But before they cut, she spoke once more. "We give this table to people who come to talk, not preach and not posture." When the cameras went dark, no one moved. The crew waited, but the only sound was the hum of the studio lights. Meghan sat motionless, composed yet unmistakably isolated. The hosts no longer looked at her like a guest. They were trying to figure out what exactly had stepped into their house. No one offered pleasantries. No one reached across the table. When the show resumed, the theme music returned with a hint of irony. The red light caught Joy mid-eye roll. "We're back," Whoopi said flatly. "Let's wrap this up." It wasn't the usual light closer. This felt unfinished. Meghan cleared her throat. "I just want to say, I think this has been a powerful moment, even if it's uncomfortable." Whoopi didn't nod. Joy looked unimpressed. "No. You want to call this powerful because that's the word people use when they've just said something reckless and want applause for it." Meghan smiled slowly. "I just think these kinds of conversations need to happen more often." "Conversations require listening," Sarah said. "All you've done is lecture." "It's like you came here to make a point and didn't care what anyone said back," Alyssa added. Sunny's patience was gone. "You came here thinking you were brave for challenging the system. But sitting at a table with women who've been challenged, criticized, and underestimated for decades, and trying to paint yourself as the sole truth-teller? That's not brave. That's opportunistic." The audience rippled with soft applause. Meghan's face didn't flinch, but her voice wavered. "You keep saying I came here with an ego, but what if I came because I'm tired of silence? Tired of watching media personalities exploit pain for ratings? Then maybe you should have started by not talking down to everyone here," Joy snapped. Whoopi looked into the camera. "This is the view. We don't always agree. We challenge. We argue. But we respect the table. And when a guest walks in, sits down, and treats this platform like it's beneath them, we notice." She turned her gaze back to Meghan. "You walked in with your walls already up. You didn't trust us, and that's fine. But you don't get to tear the house down just because you didn't like the furniture." Meghan adjusted her mic. "I don't think that's fair. I came with honesty." "Honesty isn't an excuse for arrogance," Sarah replied. "Especially when it's used as a shield." Alyssa folded her hands. "You could have made your points. You could have raised real issues. But instead, you came in like everyone else was too small for the conversation." Meghan exhaled. "It seems like there was no way for me to win." Joy smiled sharply. "That's because you weren't supposed to be playing a game." Whoopi raised her hand, signaling the end of the segment. Before the cut, she looked at Meghan one last time. "We invite guests to talk. But if you walk in swinging, don't be surprised when we swing back." She turned to the camera. "And that's all we've got time for today." The music swelled, but the energy in the room was different now, cold and final. Meghan sat still, her smile gone. The applause was short, forced. None of the hosts laughed. No one reached out to thank her. The camera caught Whoopi walking off first. Calm, deliberate. Meghan remained in her chair, staring ahead. This wasn't just a bad interview. It was a public unraveling, and The View had simply held up the mirror.